My family's life. My mother. Me, Emily Roberts, whose name has been changed. And my younger brother. Changed completely after the car accident 49 days ago that took my father's life. Dad was the pillar of the family. The one who always brought laughter and warmth. His sudden passing left an irreplaceable void in our small house in suburban Portland, Oregon. The days after the accident passed like a bad dream. The funeral, the condolences, the terrifying emptiness of coming home and not seeing Dad there. My mother tried to be strong, but I knew she was in great pain. My younger brother was too young to fully understand, but he sensed the somber atmosphere. Our familiar house now had a different atmosphere. Quieter, colder. Everything reminded me of Dad. His jacket still hung on the hook. His shoes were still by the door. And especially the brown armchair in the living room. Dad's favorite chair, where he used to sit and read the newspaper, watch TV, and drink coffee every morning. That chair was now empty. Like a painful reminder of his absence. Time passed, and we gradually learned to live with the grief. But the longing for Dad never faded. I often sat and looked at Dad's empty chair, imagining him sitting there, smiling at me. That night, it was the 49th night after my father passed away. According to folk belief, this is the time when the soul of the deceased fully leaves the mortal world to begin reincarnation. I didn't really believe in those things, but there was still a little bit of unease in my heart. It was very late at night. My mother and younger brother had been asleep for a long time. The whole house was submerged in darkness and silence. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, but feeling thirsty made me uncomfortable. I decided to go downstairs and get a glass of water. I got out of bed, left my room, and walked down the dark hallway. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the silence of the house. The air in the house was a little colder than usual. A cold that wasn't from the weather. As I went down the stairs, I felt as if someone was downstairs. A strange feeling, not scary, but very different. I stepped onto the last stair, walking into the living room, and then I saw a faint, white light radiating from Dad's brown armchair. In the darkness of the living room, that light stood out strangely. Light from the old chair. And in that light, I saw a figure. Dad's figure in the night had appeared. A faint white light radiated from Dad's armchair in the darkness of the living room. In that light, I saw a figure. A man, sitting in my father's chair. He was wearing a white shirt. A familiar build. A familiar way of sitting. My heart pounded in my chest. I recognized who it was. It was my father's figure, sitting in his favorite chair. But my father was dead. This wasn't a real person. This was my father's spirit. He sat there, motionless, looking straight ahead, into nothingness. The white light radiating from him made him look blurry, semi-transparent. A feeling of fear, mixed with astonishment and emotion, surged within me. Fear because I was seeing a spirit. Astonishment because that spirit was my father. And emotion because I finally got to see Dad. Even if it was just a blurry figure. I stood there, at the threshold of the living room, staring at Dad's figure. I didn't dare to get closer. The air around Dad's chair suddenly became very cold. A deep cold, different from the normal cold in the house. I felt as if it was the cold of the other side. I stood there for a few seconds, my eyes fixed on Dad's figure. Unable to speak. My father's spirit had come home. Why was he here? Why tonight? I gathered all my courage, took a deep breath, and slowly stepped into the living room. Each step I took was very soft, very slow. I was afraid that if I moved too suddenly, Dad's figure would disappear. As I got closer, I could see Dad's face more clearly. A familiar face, but blurry, as if made of mist. His eyes were looking straight ahead, unfocused. However, I felt a presence from him, a feeling of peace, though a little sad. The man in white sat in the old chair, waiting. I stood a few steps away from him, looking at him. Tears began to stream down my face. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to ask him so many things. I wanted to know if he was okay. I wanted to know if he still remembered me. I wanted to know why he had come back. The familiar figure in the night. My father's ghost. And I had gathered all my courage to face it. I stood there, looking at my father's figure sitting in his favorite chair. Tears streamed down my face. I knew I couldn't miss this opportunity. This was probably the last time I would ever see Dad. I gathered all my courage. Asked softly, my voice trembling, "Dad, Dad." My father's figure stirred slightly. He slowly turned his head, looking towards me, although his face was blurry. I felt as if his eyes were looking straight at me. A familiar gaze, full of love. Then, he spoke, a familiar voice, my father's voice, but it sounded soft, like an echo from a great distance, or from underwater. It had a strange timbre, but I was sure it was Dad's voice. "Emily, my daughter." I burst into tears, sobbing. It was Dad. Dad had really come back. I ran to the side of Dad's chair, knelt down, looking up at him. "Dad, you're really back," I said through sobs. I missed you so much." My father's figure raised a hand, lightly touching my cheek. I felt a bone-chilling cold draft pierce through my skin. But it wasn't scary, just cold. "I missed you, too." Dad's voice was soft, like a whisper in the wind. "I came back to visit you one last time." I froze. One last time. Why? Why is it the last time? "Dad?" I asked, my voice full of despair. "Dad, don't go. Stay with Mom and me." "Dad." My tears flowed like a river. I didn't want Dad to go. We needed Dad. My father's figure looked at me affectionately, but also with a touch of sadness. "I have to go now, dear," Dad said softly. "It's time for me to go." Reincarnate. Reincarnate. He talked about reincarnation. I knew that was the way of things, but I didn't want to accept it. "No, no, Dad," I sobbed. "Don't go. I don't want you to go." I reached out my hand, trying to hold his hand, but my hand went right through his figure. I only felt the bone-chilling cold draft. My father smiled, a sad smile. "It's time for me to go now. Remember to take care of your mother. I love you." Dad's last words. "I love you." I sobbed, not wanting Dad to go. My father's figure sat in the chair, looking at me, smiling one last time. The white light from him seemed a little stronger, then slowly faded. His voice also grew softer and softer. "Goodbye, my dear." And then, my father's figure dissolved into thin air. The white light also disappeared. Only the empty armchair remained in the darkness. I sat there, on the floor, kneeling, sobbing uncontrollably. The conversation from the other side had ended. Dad's last words had been spoken, and I was there to listen. Grief, loss, and a sense of loneliness enveloped me. But mixed within it was a little bit of peace. Dad had come home to visit me. He had said goodbye. It was a strange, scary encounter, but also full of love. I sat there, on the floor, in the dark living room, where my father had just been sitting. Tears streamed down my face. My whole body trembled, no longer from fear, but from emotion and loss. I don't know how long I sat there. Perhaps a few minutes, or perhaps longer. The cold feeling around Dad's chair gradually faded. There was only the silence of the late night and the pounding of my heart. I slowly stood up. My legs were weak. I looked at Dad's empty armchair, where just a few minutes before he had been sitting. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I had seen Dad. I had talked to him. He had come back to visit me one last time before going to reincarnate. It was an unbelievable thing, a miraculous thing, and also very scary. I went up to my room, still trembling. I couldn't sleep. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the encounter. Dad's voice, his blurry face, his last words, all were deeply etched in my mind. I knew I had to tell Mom about this. The next morning, I woke up early. Mom was downstairs, preparing breakfast. My younger brother was still asleep. I went downstairs, sat at the dining table. My face must have been pale and tired. Mom looked at me worriedly. "What's wrong, Emily?" she asked. "Didn't you sleep well last night?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Mom, I need to tell you something," I said, my voice trembling. Mom sat down across from me. "What is it, dear?" I started recounting what had happened last night. I told her about being thirsty, going downstairs, seeing the white light radiating from Dad's chair, and seeing Dad's figure sitting there. Mom listened, her face going from puzzled to astonished, then to fear, and finally to emotion. I told her about my conversation with Dad, about him saying he came to visit one last time before going to reincarnate. I told her about his last words, telling me to take care of Mom. When I finished telling her, Mom was silent for a moment. Tears streamed down her face. Are you sure it was real?" Mom asked softly, her voice trembling. "Yes, Mom," I said, firmly. "It was real. I saw Dad. I talked to Dad." I added details about the cold feeling around him, about my hand going through his figure. Mom believed me. I saw it in her eyes. We both sat there, crying from missing Dad, crying from the miraculous and scary encounter. The terrifying and miraculous truth about my father's spirit coming home had been shared. We knew this encounter was significant. Dad had come back to say goodbye. It gave us a little bit of peace in our grief, but it also left a strange, haunting feeling. After sharing the story about the encounter with Dad's spirit, my mother and I felt a deeper connection. We talked together about Dad's words, about the meaning of him coming back to visit one last time before going to reincarnate. Mom said that perhaps Dad felt something was left undone before he passed away, or he wanted to make sure we were okay. The fact that he chose the 49th night, the time when the spirit is said to depart, was also very significant. We decided to visit Dad's grave together that day. Perhaps there we would feel his presence, or find some kind of sign. We drove to the local cemetery in suburban Portland, where Dad was buried. The sky was clear. The cold air of winter was still there, but there was a gentle sun. The cemetery was quiet and peaceful. Gravestones and monuments stood silently. We found the area where Dad's grave was. Dad's grave was under a large tree, with a simple granite stone carved with his name and dates. We stood before the grave, quietly, each lost in our own thoughts. We lit incense, placed fresh flowers on the grave. Looking at the gravestone, memories of Dad flooded back. His laughter, his advice, happy family moments. The atmosphere around Dad's grave had a strange sense of peace. There was no coldness or fear like when I saw his spirit at home. Only silence and the feeling that he was here, even though I couldn't see him. As we were standing there, Mom suddenly raised her hand, pointing to the gravestone. "Look, dear," Mom said softly, her voice trembling slightly. I looked in the direction Mom was pointing. On the granite stone of Dad's grave, there was a butterfly, a very large butterfly, with dark brown wings and light-colored spots. The butterfly sat still there, on the gravestone, not flying away. What caught my attention the most were the spots on the butterfly's wings. They had a strange shape, like two eyes, two black, shimmering eyes on the butterfly's wings. They looked very beautiful, but also a bit strange, unnatural, like two eyes looking straight at us. Mom and I looked at each other, our faces full of astonishment. A large butterfly with eye-shaped wings landed on Dad's grave. Was this a sign? Was it Dad? Had Dad reincarnated and become this butterfly? Or was this a message from him? We didn't know, but a sense of wonder enveloped us. The butterfly sat there for a few minutes, then slowly flapped its wings and flew up. It circled around us for a while, as if saying goodbye, then flew away, disappearing into the sky. Signs from the other side. Visiting Dad's resting place brought us a strange and meaningful experience. It confirmed that the encounter last night was real, and that Dad had indeed left, starting a new journey. The butterfly with eye-shaped wings was perhaps a message that he was okay, and that he was still watching over us. The encounter with my father's spirit on the 49th night and the appearance of the strange butterfly at his grave changed the way we perceived death and life after death. The pain of losing Dad was still there, but now it was mixed with a little bit of peace and hope. We knew that Dad hadn't simply disappeared. He had gone to reincarnate, starting a new journey. The encounter that night, although scary to see a spirit, was a precious experience. Dad had come back to say goodbye, to make sure we were okay, and to say that he loved us. Dad's last words, telling me to take care of Mom, always echoed in my mind. I knew that was my responsibility now. The appearance of the large butterfly with eye-shaped wings at Dad's grave was a strange and meaningful sign. For us, it was like a confirmation from Dad that he had left, and he had left a sign to let us know that he was still watching. The eyes on the butterfly's wings. We didn't know if it was just a coincidence or a planned message. But for us, it held deep meaning, as if Dad was looking at us one last time. We didn't talk about this with many people outside the family. We were afraid they wouldn't believe us, or would think we were hallucinating due to grief. But this story was real to us. It was the terrifying and miraculous truth about the existence of spirits and life after death. My family's life continued. The longing for Dad was still there, but now it was accompanied by a belief that he was in a better place, and that one day, we would see him again, perhaps in another form. We often visited Dad's grave, and sometimes, we would see butterflies around there. It wasn't always the large butterfly with eye-shaped wings, but every time we saw a butterfly, we would think of Dad. A message from the realm of rebirth brought us peace and hope. It was also a reminder that this world holds many mysteries and supernatural things that we cannot explain. Our story is a testament to love that transcends death, and to the existence of miraculous, though sometimes scary, things in life. Dad had gone to reincarnate, but his spirit left a trace, a message, and a loving goodbye, and we will forever cherish that. If you enjoyed these true horror stories, or stories based on accounts and unexplained mysteries, like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.